about my relatives. The only way to get to the center of my story was by means of elaborate detours to distant peripheries. When I was finished writing the story, I found myself unable to move. At the time, I told myself that I was merely tired, but now the distance of a decade and a half permits me to see that I had experienced a crisis of some kind, even a kind of breakdown. For some months, I found it hard to leave my apartment, let alone to do any traveling. I had been to Australia and Denmark and Ukraine, Israel and Poland and Sweden, been to the mass graves and to the museums, including one in Tel Aviv where, to my surprise, the thing that moved me most was a room full of meticulous models of synagogues that had, over the millennia, been built throughout the territory of the Jewish diaspora, in Kaifeng, China, and in Cochin, India, the 6th century Beit Alpha synagogue in Lower Galilee, and the 12th century Santa Maria la Blanca synagogue in Toledo, which owes its strange name to the fact that shortly after it was built by a special dispensation from King Alfonso X to create the largest and most beautiful synagogue in Spain, it was attacked by mobs, partly destroyed, and subsequently reconstituted as a church dedicated to the Virgin. The 19th century Tempio Israelitico in Florence, and its contemporary, the Oranienburger Straße synagogue in Berlin, the one desecrated, the other destroyed by fire during World War II, and both now painstakingly recreated in miniature in Israel, a country that did not exist when those buildings were gutted. I was so moved, I think, because at one point from late childhood to early adolescence, I myself had been an obsessive model builder, carefully constructing precise-scale replicas of ancient buildings, the mortuary temple of the Egyptian pharaoh Hatshepsut in Deir el-Bahri, the Parthenon in Athens, Rome's Circus Maximus. Each of those structures characterized, as I can now see, although I doubt I was conscious of it at the time, by the insistent reduplication of a given structural or decorative element, ramps, columns, arches. I suppose I found the repetition reassuring. At any event, this is why, as I stood there in the model room of the museum in Tel Aviv, halfway through the worldwide journey I undertook in the early 2000s, I had such a strong emotional reaction. I was familiar with the impulse to make such replicas, which is haunted by a poignant paradox: the belief in our ability to recreate and the acknowledgement that the original has been lost. Lost, I should say, can be a misleading word, implying as it does destruction beyond the point where reconstruction is possible. But there are other kinds of loss, alterations or repurposings of structures so extensive or dramatic that, although the original still stands, is still present, we might nonetheless feel the need for reconstruction of the sort to be found in the model room at Beit HaTefusot in Tel Aviv. There is, for example, a decaying but still handsome structure that dominates the market square of a small subcarpathian town called Bolechiv, currently located within the borders of Ukraine, although it was part of Poland when my relatives, who called it Bolechów, lived there, as their relatives before them had done for many centuries until 1943, when the last of them perished. This large rectangular building, its pale pink stucco walls pierced at regular intervals by a series of elegant tall windows with rounded tops, was once known as the Great Synagogue of the town. A slight pretension that can be forgiven when you consider, first, that there were at one time more than a dozen synagogues of various sizes in this small market town, and second, that most of the other buildings in Bolechów were in fact quite small in comparison. The epithet great can, if anything, strike you as poignant now, given that there is not a single synagogue left in that place, and that every single person who ever attended